Hi, I'm Carrie from the Junk Journal and Bramble Society. Hello my lovies. So in this part 2 of Woodland Autumn, first of all we're going to be playing with some stamps with first the fine Claire ink and then watercolour on top. Then we're going to use my new stencils with some Tim Holtz ink. For the next design we use the stencils, but this time with some gouache paint to see what sort of effects I can get with them. And then finally we're going to have a little play with some leaves to see if we can take some rubbings from them and see what effect we can get with them. So here I am, I'm just having a look at this really old set of stamps that I've got. We got this from a charity shop. So I'm just having a look at what we've got in the pack, and I've decided on the largest stamp, which is a beautiful set of oak leaves and some acorns. Putting it on the little acrylic block, and starting off, I've not really thought this through before I'm doing it, so it's literally just picking up the things and just going for it. So I've got the Claire ink in green. So the green that I'm using is called Shady Lane. I do like the names of these Claire inks. I've decided that I want to find out where the midpoint is, so I'm just folding the paper in half. And then flatten it back out again flat. Again, I haven't really, at this point, I haven't got a design in mind. I'm just playing. So if I was doing this again, what I would do is I would sort of, instead of treating the 2 pages like 2 separate pages, I would just treat it as one big page design, similar to you would do with a piece of wrapping paper or wallpaper. And then I'd think about how I want a repeat pattern across the page. So this probably would mean going off the side of the page with some of the stamps. But I think this would give like a better effect, rather than just trying to treat them separately and then doing a separate design on each of the A5 sides. So I'm just looking at what the different colours I've got. I've actually only got 4 of these inks. I really like them. So in the future I would like to get some more of them, but at the minute I've only got the 4. So the second ink that I'm picking up is the Fallen Leaves colour, which is a really lovely dark brown. I'm not sure whether I would have preferred doing all the stamping in one colour, because later on you'll see I do actually paint these designs, and I'm not sure whether it'd look better with just one base colour in the outline. I think I'd change how I would have done that. It would have probably made this process quicker, because I keep chopping and changing from the different ink colours and having to take the lids off and things. So I was thinking, if you wanted to streamline the process, then yeah, it would be a lot easier just using one colour. So I'm just looking through the other sets of stamps that I have now and sort of seeing what I have. These are all pretty new. These are all from the shop that must not be named, beginning with a T. I have really mixed feelings about shopping there, but at the end of the day, I couldn't get stamps this cheap anywhere else. I also wouldn't be able to get the selection that I can online. What I've kind of decided to do is to keep along the acorn and oak theme. So I've just picked out, I've got an oak leaf and then I've got an acorn stamp. And again, this is, you probably can't, it's quite hard to see, but it's really small, 2 acorns and an oak leaf. So what I'll do now is I will quickly fast forward this process. So basically all I'm doing is taking the different stamps and trying to fill up the page. Wouldn't it be cool to be able to do this in real life? Just press a button and fast forward tasks that you find boring. As I'm watching this on the screen, you'll see when I've finished doing the acorns, I definitely feel like there's some acorns missing in the top right hand of this page. So I probably will go back and add some more. But actually looking through things through a camera, a really good way of reflecting and seeing craft projects. So if you're ever stuck, you know, grab a camera on your phone and just take a picture and have a look at it, and then it might help you see where things are missing. At this point, I'm toying with the idea of putting some red on the page. So just because I've got the red ink, so I've selected from my little pile some berries, a little stamp with some berries on, just to see whether I feel like the red's going to work. I have actually got a smaller acrylic block. When you're using smaller stamps, it is better to use a block that's not much bigger than it, and this stops you from collecting the ink on the sides, which can then go onto your page and spoil what you're doing. So I've actually printed it on I've stamped it on a bit of paper, and I thought, oh, that, you know, I like it. I do like the look of the berries, the really bright red berries. I'm just clearing my workspace again. And then when I actually get it over to the page and I can see, sort of put it up against the rest of it, it doesn't look right. So I've changed my mind. So I'm putting the red ink away for another day. Now I'm just taking out my watercolours. Trying to keep tidy my workspace up. When you're using watercolours, you want to start with just some plain water in the pan. As you can see, I'm using a really small brush here, and it's not effectively lifting the water from the water cup, so I take a larger brush. And then I start mixing a green colour. It really is it's just trial and error with the colours. I do have a basic understanding of the colour wheel and how other colours interact with other colours. But again, when you're using different paints, they can have different undertones. So it's really just having a play and getting in there, getting stuck in, and don't be afraid to have a go. You really do need permanent ink when you want to paint on top. If you use an ink like Tim Holtz Distress ink, whether it's oxide or not, if you start putting water on top, it's just going to run and it's not going to stay put. So I was actually really pleased with how the Versaclair ink worked with these watercolours. It didn't run at all. Kept really nice and defined and sharp. I'm just going to jump forward a little bit now in the video, and I will speed it up so that you can see as I paint along. As I go, I'm sort of changing the colour slightly so that I can get some variation across the page. So I'm using the orange, and then I might add a little bit more brown to the orange, or the same with the green, just to get that sort of variation. I've pulled out a couple of leaves in front of me just so that I feel like I'm being inspired by the colours and the variation in the colours. So again, I've jumped forward a little bit. As you can see, most of the leaves have got some colour on. I could have gone on and let this dry and added some more detail, but I felt that I was quite happy with the way it is. You could always do that depending on what effect you wanted. I just wanted quite a plain leaf pattern, not too fussy. On this one leaf, I'm adding some shadow. I think it looked, after I'd done the other page, it looked a bit insipid, so I just wanted to put a bit more colour on. This is the finished page. I'm really pleased with it, because I was really happy with the way the page turned out. I decided I wanted to make some decorative pieces to decorate some ephemera for the journal. So just on this page, I have it in portrait. I'm just adding a load of the stamps. Again, varying the colour of the ink. I do jump forward in a second to show you I don't think you need to see me stamp all the page. This is the page with all the stamps on it, and then this is the version where I've painted all the stamps. So what I could do then is just copy this and then cut them out, fussy cut them out and use them to decorate ephemera, and then that would make a matching digital set to go with the leaves page. So this next page is going to be what I think is quite a simple one. So I've just got a coffee stained page, A4 page, and I'm just taking the new stencils that I've got and using various distress inks and oxides just to put a really basic leaf pattern down. The green that I'm using now is called Crushed Olive. I will sort of speed up this section of the video because I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just putting the stencil down, and the way I like to use stencils, and I have actually used stencils on walls before, and I find that the best way to get a clean effect is a sort of a dabbing motion. I'm not actually doing that here, but yeah, it's slightly easier with the distress ink because it doesn't run. And in between using the different coloured inks, I am cleaning off the stencils. Try to do this straight away. Can't say I always remember to do this, but it is a lot easier if you do it straight away. But when it gets dry, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do. With this stencil, I am actually using one of the smaller ink blenders just because it's a smaller design. You will see that I do get some ink on bits of the page that I don't want it to be, but I make it part of the design and sort of add little bits of the colour around the leaves. The purple that I'm using on this page is Villainous Potion. The orange is Carved Pumpkin and the brown is Vintage Photo. At this point, I decided that I wanted to grunge up the page a little bit more. So I just took the Vintage Photo on the blender tool and went round the edges. And I also folded it back in half and went round the middle section as well. So this is the finished page. I matched up the corner patterns on the top two corners as well, just to give it a bit of balance. I felt like it needed more. I think this is really cute. You can't go wrong with the stencil and a Tim Holtz distress ink. So now I'd played with the Tim Holtz ink, I decided that I was going to be brave and try the new gouache paint. Now, I actually think this page ended up being a bit of a fail, but you know, you live and learn, and you have to practice using different paint to understand how it works. Now, the problem I found with this was because I'm used to using acrylics, you do have to get them to be workable. I like to add quite a bit of water to them just to sort of thin them out a little bit. And I think I was trying to do the same to these paints, and because they're water based anyway, I was just making them too runny. So I am going to go back and retry this, but I thought it was worth putting in just so that you could see that you can use paint with stencils. Still managed to get some nice effects, but it just wasn't as sharp as I would have liked. So in this pack you didn't get a purple, so I had to do the usual trick of making purple out of the red and blue. I do have a heat gun, which is really useful when you're using paints. You just give it a quick dry, especially like here if you wanted to layer. So I decided to try and see if I could create a cool effect by adding an extra layer of paint over the top, adding some highlight. As you can see, I'm adding water again, and I think I just too much. So I gave once I'd finished with the stencils, I gave the page a dry, again with my heat tool. You can actually use a hairdryer to do this. You don't need a fancy heat tool. For a long time I just used I had my travel hairdryer in my craft room that I used. Then because I wasn't quite happy that it wasn't that clean, I tried to go back in with some markers, and I don't think this improved it. I think this actually spoiled it a little bit. So yeah, maybe don't do this. But again, I was playing, so I wanted to experiment. Now, before I started adding the marker, if I'd taken a scan of the page, then I could have had a copy to modify. So if I didn't like it, then I'd still have the original. Just something to think about. As I still wasn't quite happy with the effect, I tried to do something else. I went back in with a really fine black liner just to see if it looked any better with a black line around it. Now, I didn't go exactly on the line. I tried to make it look a little bit messy, like you do when you do pen and ink and watercolour drawings. I'm not sure about this, but anyway. I remember in play school, very, very long time ago, doing rub-ins of leaves, and I hadn't tried this for so long, and because I just bought some new Crayola crayons, so I fancied giving it a go. I think it would have been better with maybe blank white paper, and maybe I was expecting too much. It worked better with the darker colour, so you can see here I did it, first of all did it with the brown, and I think that worked better than this sort of light green, especially on the coffee dyed paper. And because I felt like it wasn't that effective, I thought I'd give it a try with the impressions on a die, because lots of the dies that I've got the ridges in to sort of emboss them, and I actually think this work came out a lot better. So something to have a play with. Take rubbings of your dies. Because I wasn't having much luck with it, I decided not to turn this into a page design. But what I will do is I'll cut these out and I will show these in the finale. It might be just something that you want to do just to decorate a page. It's good fun. I'd like to try this with other things. I do remember doing coins, so at some point I might try using some coins. I thought I'd give it a go with some pencil crayons to see if this made a difference, and I don't think it did. I think the wax crayons were better. It's really hard to pick up what I'm doing with the lighter colours at all on the screen. Determined to make it work, so I try this time with a pencil. No, not much better. So now I try with the die. And again I try with the green, give the green another go. And that definitely you can actually see it this time. So that's a bit of fun. So I do hope that you've enjoyed this video. I have sped through quite a bit of it because obviously it's just quite repetitive. But hopefully you've been able to just sort of relax and watch somebody craft. I definitely enjoyed filming it. So there's going to be a part 3 that should be coming out soon. That becomes in part 3 we're going to get a bit more technical, and then depending on how long that turns out after editing, I might include the finale on the end of that, so you'll get to see the end results of all the different pages. Until next time, please take care, stay safe, and hopefully I will see you soon. Bye bye.